welcome to the video lecture of the chapter A Visit to Cambridge. In this chapter we are going to study about an author, and he's an Indian author, and he's also a journalist, and he goes to England, and in his visit to England he meets Mr. Stephen Hawking. As we all know that Mr. Stephen Hawking was a very famous scientist. He was basically an astrophysicist. Astrophysicists are the person who deals with star and planet and earth, star and planet and space. All these kind of things are the area of expertise of astrophysicist, and Mr. Stephen Hawking was also an astrophysicist. So here the Indian author, who is Firdaus Kanga, he goes to England, and England is his he goes to England and he says that the name of this chapter is A Visit to Cambridge. Basically the author says that Cambridge is my metaphor to England, means he uses Cambridge when he is talking about England. So he goes to England, he visits all the country, he visits everything which is famous in that country, and because he wants to write a book, he is writing about his experiences, his visits in all the places that he has gone. And when he was visiting Cambridge, when he went to the university, a guide was there. The guide was telling him about all the things that are famous in the university, and the guide happened to mention about Stephen Hawking, and he says that the Stephen Hawking is basically an heir to the chair of Mr. Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton. So we all know that Isaac Newton was a scientist who told us about gravity, and it is a big statement that the guide said that Mr. Hawking is the new heir of the chair of Mr. Isaac Newton. And he was right, of course, because Mr. Hawking is very famous, and he has done a lot in his field of work. He has given us a lot. So let's read about this chapter. When author hears about Mr. Hawking, that Mr. Hawking was there in this university and he used to live in that campus, and now he lives elsewhere, so he gets very excited, and he calls at Mr. Hawkins' home, and he takes the appointment to meet him. His appointment is between 3 to 3:30, means he has just half an hour to meet him and to ask his question. So the author goes to Mr. Hawkins. He says hello, and then he started asking question as in he started taking interviews. And the first question he asks Mr. Hawkins is that, do you take a lot of interviews? Do you have to give a lot of interviews? To which Mr. Hawkins says yes, because of course all the people who visit Cambridge or who visit England, they want to meet Mr. Hawkins, and our author is one of them. So he asks him various questions. He asks him about his situation. He asks him how does he feel being a paralyzed person. He says that it's okay as long as you know how to deal with it, as long as you have made your peace with your disabilities, and you have made use of them. In fact, you have tried to make peace with them, and you have given your focus to the things that you like very much. And since Mr. Hawkins was good at science, he focused on that. He focused on that, and he made a very good name of himself in that field. So the author asks him various questions. Then Mr. Hawkins answers all the question, but somehow the author is not very satisfied with the answer. He is not very satisfied with the answer because he cannot discern from his voice, from the voice of Mr. Hawkins, that whether he is happy, he is sad, he is angry, he is sarcastic or serious. He cannot discern anything from his voice because that is not his actual voice. That voice is actually a machine voice, because he cannot speak anything. His only moving part of his body is his two little fingers. He has to type anything that he wants to convey in the keyboard that is there on his wheelchair. He types from his two fingers only, and then after he is done typing, the computer speaks whatever he has typed in that keyboard. So basically that is not his own voice, that is the voice of a computer, that is a machine voice. And obviously the machine voice cannot convey the emotions of human. So the author is not very satisfied with the inflections of his voice. He cannot understand that whether Mr. Hawkins is happy or sad or angry. So that is why he mentions that the voice was of a machinic voice, and I was not being able to discern anything from that voice. After that, his half an hour is over, since he had only taken the appointment for half an hour, and he started going. He says that I have to go now because my half an hour is over. To that, Mr. Hawkins says that stay, we will have some tea, and then I will give you the tour of my garden. There is a garden at Mr. Hawkins' home, and he invites the author to take the tour of that garden after they have had some tea. So they had tea, and they went to the tour of that garden. They visit that garden, all part of that garden. But they cannot speak much while they were in the garden, because obviously Mr. Hawkins doesn't speak much, doesn't speak at all. The computer voice speaks for him, and since it was sunlight in the garden was very shiny. The keyboard was not visible to Mr. Hawkins, and that is why he could not speak anything, because he was not being able to type anything. So they were not being able to speak much while they were in garden, while they were touring the garden. But um, but they visited the garden. They toured the whole garden, and after that they returned to his home. And after that, the author says his goodbye to Mr. Hawkins. When the author saw Mr. Hawkins, he felt very privileged. He felt very happy about even his disabilities, because our author was also physically disabled. Means he was paralyzed from west down. He was not being able to move from his own 2 feet. He was not being able to stand on his feet. He was paralyzed, and he was also using wheelchair. But when he saw Mr. Hawkins, he felt very happy. He felt very privileged for the small things that he could do, like he could write, he could speak, he could move his hand. So all these things he felt very privileged about. All these things that he thought very trivial, all these things that he did not even care about at first, he felt very privileged to have them, to have the ability to do the small, to do the as trivial things as blinking the eyes. So he felt very privileged about that, and after meeting him, he felt very exhilarated. And when he was saying goodbye to Mr. Hawkins, the author said that I could swear that he was waving at me, even though he was not, because obviously he could not wave. Mr. Hawkins could not wave. He was not being able to move his hand, but still, looking at him, when the author looked at him, he thought that Mr. Hawkins would be waving at me were he able to do that. So that is the chapter, A Visit to Cambridge. From this chapter, the moral of this chapter is that we should be glad that we are being able to do all the things that we do not even care about. We are being able to move on our feet, we are being able to move our hand, we are being able to speak and everything. So we should be very grateful for all these things, because some of the people are out there in the world who are not being able to do all these things. They are the people who are deprived of even as trivial the things as blinking their eyes. So these are the things that we should be grateful about, and we should be focusing on the things that we like and on the things that interest us, and we should build our interest even more. We should start focusing on them, and we should explore our knowledge and explore the options that we have, so that we can do great things in our life, as Mr. Hawkins and the author of this chapter, who is Firdaus Kanga, did. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Have a good day.